Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive. Hello. It's AZ with Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. This is episode number 146, and today you get to hear from Jon Vought from Rescue1CBD, and we talked about his history with his pretty major surgery and how he actually came to be well acquainted with CBD as a method to help with inflammation and sleep and all of the things. Jon and I had a great conversation. I know you're going to love it. As always, please give us a rating and a review on the platform where you listen, and share the podcast episode with another firefighter you know. Thank you. Hey, Jon, how are you today?
Great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course, this is exciting. And also apologies for I call it the Dawes family plague. My advisor's family was sick the entire Christmas break. And he was not sick. And then as soon as school started, we both got sick. So it's not good.
It's going around like crazy.
Yeah, I'm on a greater than week 2, but I'm feeling a lot better. Do you think we should introduce you to the folks at home?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a great idea. Guys, I'm here today with Jon Vought. Funny story, I have Jon saved in my phone as Jon, last name Rescue1CBD, and I realized this morning I didn't even know his last name, but welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's okay. My first and/or last name isn't that important. The mission and what we're trying to do is like the highlight here, so I appreciate it.
And listeners, you know that I don't do video because, it's just a huge barrier to entry. Jon does do video on his podcast, and his backdrop is stunning. So I'm sorry you're missing out on it. You're going to have to head over to his podcast to see his backdrop there.
Thank you.
Should we maybe introduce you to the listeners the way I always introduce my guests, which is the super lazy way? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. First question. Who is Jon Vought?
So I'm a firefighter paramedic in South Florida, and I've been on the job since 2009. So coming up on 16 years here, and currently hold the rank of captain for the last 2. By way of my mother, who's in the fire service. She's a captain still on the Palm Beach County Fire Department. I am second generation firefighter because of her, and she's my inspiration and all around badass. And I love the fire service, play the bagpipes in the fire department, pipe and drum corps. I run our cadet program for the youth. I'm just a very ate up firefighter. And I started Rescue1CBD in 2020 after I had a pretty bad foot surgery. I was on opiates for a while, and I wanted to deliver the experience I had with CBD, which was a great one, to the rest of the fire service without the fear of failing a drug test. So summed up, that's me. I'm now, full-fledged wannabe business owner, where I'm like trying to figure this thing out as I go, and just putting all my effort into that.
It's going to be really hard for me to stay on task with the introduction because I already have 46 side questions and a statement. But I will make the statement so I don't forget. I forgot that your mom was in the fire service, and I totally think that she should come to the Women's Tactical Human Performance Summit.
I gotta tell her about that. I have been sharing that around, by the way. I'm really excited. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yes. We will get Jon's mom.
Cool.
If not in
Ada.
person, hopefully virtually at least.
Yeah. Okay. Ada. Yeah. She's an EMS captain there now. She was a station captain for a while, and she has a ton of experience. She works in a very rough area of Palm Beach County, and she has a lot of experience. So very cool.
Awesome. All right, Jon, what sets your soul on fire?
My future wife, Megan. She's she's like everything that, everything I do is basically for her. And, that's my purpose. She helps me run the business too. Like she's just involved with like everything, but um that's the constant, everything else. And it's like super cheesy and like whatever. I'm definitely a romantic, but she and my dogs that you could probably hear in the background, they're okay, good. They're also my second and third, because those are the three things that just bring me joy. I love the business and I love my job on the fire department, but those have a lot of downs, and those other things in my life just feel like they don't. I'm sure they're there, I just don't realize them. So that's the thing that absolutely is the constant, and keeps me focused on the right things and ignore some of the bad.
I'm excited for Megan. And you said a future wife. Are you
Yeah,
guys engaged
we're
yet?
engaged. Yeah.
So exciting. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. All right, last question. How are you changing the world?
I don't know yet. I'll let you know in like 10 or 15 years, but I would like to say that my narrow corner of the world in the fire service, I'm trying to change the way people view their health and wellness, and specifically, through CBD, but I'm hoping people can understand the impact of caring about your health and wellness, on your days off and after you retire. So if that comes around through improved sleep through CBD or reduce inflammation through CBD, that's great. But I hope overall, like, people kind of see what I'm doing and try to change for the better.
I always like having conversations with you because I feel like our missions align really well.
Exactly.
So, yay. Okay, first of all, I want to dig into this foot surgery because I have had several, and I know so many people that have had foot surgeries, foot problems. Can you give us some deets on what that was all about?
I was born with a very tight Achilles, and more so on my left than my right foot, and I don't know what happened or why that is. But over time, my foot, I would angle my foot outward like a penguin, and my whole life, and I didn't even realize I was doing it really. Well, over time, those bones fused. In that, it was called a rigid deformity. It was just they fused. So I was walking basically on my ankle, my medial malleolus, and like my pinky toe wouldn't even touch the ground. It was like just my foot. You can imagine that's kind of painful to walk on. And I after a while, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I had a triple arthrodesis, so they fused 3 bones in my foot. This doc was incredible. He basically broke up that area and built an arch in my foot with just 3 screws. But that meant I had to get 3 joints fused in my foot to make that. And then to solve the Achilles problem, they actually cut like a little relief cut in my calf muscle where it meets my Achilles. It's called a gastroc recession. So they elongated my Achilles a little bit and then solved that problem. So it was a pretty invasive surgery. And I say it was a 45-minute surgery. That's how fast it was. And I was like, in 45 minutes, this guy ruined my life for like 3 years, because the recovery was, there's no other word to describe it. It was horrible. And, I was bedridden for weeks. I went through depression because I couldn't even get into the sunlight. I'm a very, very active guy, and experience what it's like, to basically, be an invalid by all definitions. And then, the pain from it was pretty intense. I had a nerve block that lasted 2 days, so that was awesome. So I didn't feel anything. But then I had to use Percocet daily, sometimes multiple times a day, for almost 2 months, and it was like doing that. You develop, I didn't have like an addiction, but I was dependent, and coming off of it was just not cool, especially for my sleep. But that foot surgery, I'm really glad I did it, because the arch he put in my foot is incredible. I have more ability and mobility now than ever. He added years onto my life with that surgery, but it was incredibly difficult to go through for both me and May. Like she had to basically take care of me for months. Couldn't do anything.
Now we not only love Megan, she's a hero.
Yep.
She's been elevated to hero status.
For sure. Yep.
So just so I understand, it wasn't that the surgery was like botched or incorrectly done. It was just such a big deal.
Yeah.
That's why your recovery was just a real pain in the foot.
Yeah. It was, the swelling didn't go down for a year. So
what?
Yeah. And he told me it was going to be like that. It would, the initial swelling, like where it would, if I got out of bed to, cause I still had to use the bathroom and I showered every few days, like I literally couldn't, it was so painful to get out of bed that I wouldn't shower. I would have to lay there for a few days. It was terrible. But if I would get out of bed, I had about 90 seconds before the stitches started leaking because of all the pressure in my foot. I had to lay flat and have my foot elevated. And, something about gravity, man, everything goes downward.
It's magical.
It's magical. Right. So your foot just like pools. And, man, so, that initial swelling went down after like 8 weeks, but, the swelling where it would just stay swollen if I walked at all, it was over a year. So I couldn't run for about a year. I slowly, I had to kind of learn how to, step on my foot because it was a totally different foot. It was like, you ever buy new shoes, and the first time you put them on, you're like, whoa, or you get the same boots, like at work, like your work boots, and you buy a new set of those exact ones and you put them on and you're like, oh, that's what man, I didn't realize how messed up the other ones were. I didn't step on that foot for almost 2 months after it got rebuilt. And when I took my first step, I was like, I feel like I'm learning how to walk right now. I've never had an arch, so it was a very, very odd feeling. It was like I had a different foot on. I don't know how to explain it, but it was a good thing, but it was a very painful recovery. The flexion and the dorsiflexion wasn't there. And then when I was doing physical therapy, my buddy on the fire department, his wife is a physical therapist there. And she was telling him, I didn't know this at the time, but she was telling him, she was like, everybody in the office says that guy is never going to be a firefighter again. They're like, not a chance. So that's how serious the recovery was. But my doc told me they were going to say that. He's like, everybody's going to freak out. They're going to ask, why did you do this? He's like, because it's a really, really gnarly surgery, but you're fine. Don't worry about it. And it came out great. It's the road to recovery sucked, but it was totally worth it.
I love it when they say, it'll be fine. Yeah. That just strikes panic in my heart. Yeah, so how long was it before you actually got back to full duty?
It was just over a year. So I had to burn almost 1,000 hours of sick time to start, which was all that I had. I had like 900 something hours, gone. And we accrue like 100 sick hours a year. So that was almost like 10 years of sick time that I'd saved up, just gone. But I knew it was going to happen. Thankfully I had it because I couldn't get out of bed. So I couldn't do light duty. So I was back to light duty. I went on light duty at like the 4-month mark or something. And then I was on light duty for, I think 6 or 7 months. It was a while. It was quite a bit, but it was about a year.
Dang. I did not know this. I'm so glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
So in the course of laying in your bed, questioning your life choices, and now taking controlled substances to control your pain, was that kind of the impetus for you to start looking into CBD, or did you already know about CBD?
I knew about CBD, and I actually started working for another company, like doing e-commerce for them. I built their website, and I did like some of the marketing stuff. I was self-taught on that before. Megan and I had like run a couple of Amazon businesses and like all this other stuff. We were like learning. So I had by chance been working with this other company, and I was like learning about CBD. I'm like, oh man, I want to try this stuff. And I was reading, I'm like, you can't, because you're going to fail a drug test. So that started me down the path of understanding it, but I didn't get to see how you could make it safely until after I was already working for them for a little bit, and that's when I started my own thing. But I did try it even when I was probably going to fail a drug test. I wasn't working at the time, and so I was like, well, I'm off. I might as well try it and see. And it helped my sleep a lot. So I was like, I wish other people knew about this or we could get it out there. And that was in 2019 or 2018, I think it was. Yeah.
And so let's dig into, I have a feeling that many of the listeners are moderately to pretty well acquainted with CBD, but probably there are some out there that are not at all. So what the heck is it? It's weed, right?
That's a good setup. A lot of people don't know that much about it, and I don't expect them to in the fire service for sure. But CBD is a compound short for cannabidiol, and it comes from the hemp plant. It's also found in marijuana, like the cannabis plant as well, but just not as prominent. It's really concentrated in the hemp plant, and there is a difference, but that's for another episode maybe. And so it's widely extracted from hemp, and it has a few properties that are really important for firefighters. One, it reduces inflammation. If you want to get really nerdy, it
I do.
reduces. Yeah, this is the audience. If you look it up, it works in the same way that prednisone works. It reduces cytokines, so it has a really cool anti-inflammatory property, and it also is a mild antioxidant. So reducing ROS or reactive oxidative species, right? So it's pretty cool in that effect. So for chronic inflammation, which most of us who are sleep deprived are in a state of chronic inflammation, it's great. It's great for that. And it has a really cool effect on sleep. So it's three ways it affects sleep, but I'll dig into that a little bit. But the compound itself is really just, it's a molecule from a hemp plant, and it gets put into all different kinds of stuff. It can get put into tinctures that you put under your tongue. It can get put into topical creams for inflammation and all this other stuff. But ultimately, it really is just a compound that's been in this plant for millennia, and we're just now kind of extracting it out and using it, because until 2018 it was considered marijuana. It was hemp and cannabis were not differentiated. They were both considered marijuana until the Farm Bill in 18 changed that. So that's where the proliferation, like, it kind of started popping up from too as well.
So let's get a little bit nerdier about the sleep for a second.
Yeah.
Tell us, tell everyone, how does it impact our sleep?
This is my favorite thing to talk about because
mine too.
Yeah, it really is. And with firefighters and sleep, if anybody's listened to any of your podcasts, they know how important it is. And same thing with Dr. Brager, like, her talking about sleep is the best performance enhancing drug and all that stuff. It's true. And there are 3 ways that CBD improves sleep. So the first one is it has a cool effect on serotonin. It disrupts the degradation of serotonin, so it naturally just boosts endogenous serotonin, and which is a nice way to do it instead of artificial serotonin. So you get this like feel good feeling. It relaxes you a little bit. So before bed, it kind of stops the rumination and the crazy thoughts that happen. That's one. The other one is it decreases body temperature slightly, which is really important for sleep, obviously, and especially at night. Most of us probably eat too close to bed, I think, if I had to guess. And that increases body temperature and just like our circadian rhythm being all screwed up. Our body doesn't know when to bring the body temperature down and up and all that stuff. So decreasing body temperature at night is the second one. And the third one, which is the craziest one to me, is a few years ago it was discovered that the compounds in your brain that set the master clock in the area of your brain, the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that is
so much.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I had to practice it a few times before I started saying it a lot. But the SCN is the hormones or transmitters that set the master clock are endogenous cannabinoids. So you can't have a circadian rhythm without endocannabinoids. Um, and that to me was insane. So they dug further and they realized in a sleep deprived state, your endocannabinoids are at an all time low. And at a fully rested state, and while you're sleeping, your endocannabinoids are at an all time high. And that means if we kind of unwind this a little bit, if we're constantly working shift schedules and we're screwing up our sleep, it can be assumed that we have a deficiency in endocannabinoids. So, in the same way that if you're deficient in vitamin C, you might get sick a little easier. If you're deficient in endocannabinoids, you can't set your master clock again. So, it could be this other side of it that we don't even see yet. That CBD is a reset for your master clock, and that's why one of the most common things that you see people, or that I hear people say, which is so crazy, is when they first start taking CBD, they have really, really, really vivid dreams. And it's not because, and some people say, like, I haven't dreamt in years and I'm just now dreaming. I'm like, you probably are, from what I've read, you probably are dreaming. You just don't remember it. And Dr. Matt Walker talks about this phenomenon with vivid dreams after taking cannabinoids. And he also relates it to alcoholics that quit alcohol and they start sleeping properly again. He said your body has like this REM deficit or REM debt, and when you pay it back, all these dreams like come tidal wave down. And it's more memorable. So the dreams appear more detailed and they're longer. People describe like the conversations that they have, or like noticing items on a desk, or like it's like very, very specific, or like they're doing push-ups and they see like the gravel, and there's like a lot of very, very detailed things that typically aren't in like normal dreams. So it's a cool way of assessing whether it's like working for you or not. But those are the three ways, and the last one I thought was the craziest one.
As you were talking about the SCN and the depletion of endocannabinoids, I was thinking of this. It's let me see if you can follow this. It's kind of like when a young person is trying to get a job, they want experience, but you don't have experience until you get a job.
Sure.
And so the fire service wants to sleep, but since we can't sleep, we don't have the endocannabinoids. I'm saying it wrong. So that we can sleep. It's so rude. Is that a good analogy or not?
I totally see that one. And I say almost the same thing in another way, and I'm like, if you want to fix your sleep, how are you supposed to do it? You'd have to quit the fire service, because the cure for bad sleep is good sleep. You know what I mean? You're like, well, how the hell am I supposed to do that? I run 5 after midnight every night. How am I supposed to do that? And, there's like all these formulas that I've heard, for every night of bad sleep or every hour of bad sleep, you're supposed to sleep X, and if you look at it, you're like, okay, well, that's never going to happen while I'm working. I'll be in a sleep deprived state for decades, because I'm not going to quit the job. Everybody loves the fire service. So I'm hoping if we do find out more about this stuff, that we can kind of have our cake and eat it too, where we're like, we don't have to quit the fire service and we can have great sleep and recovery. That would be pretty cool, if you ask me.
I am on the other side of the fire service, which is fabulous. I sleep really well almost every night. And when I don't sleep well, it's my own damn fault.
Yeah.
But I'm still in contact with a lot of people in the fire service. And it just like, it hurts me in my soul when they're talking about, yeah, I ran 6 medical calls after 11 p.m. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, rough.
No can do, partner. No can do.
Everybody puts in the time,
Right. A question occurred to me. First off, I usually don't ask questions that I don't at least have some semblance of the answer for already, kind of like an attorney. But this one I have no idea. So it's all on you. You were talking about temperature regulation, especially at night. Any research that you know about with perimenopause and menopause and CBD treatment?
There are case studies. I'm not aware of no, there might be, but I'm not aware of like any like double blind stuff, where they had a like a published medical study like that. But there are case studies, yeah, for dealing with postmenopause or perimenopause and just hot flashes and stuff like that. And it's very interesting. They're positive results, but that's one I'd have to look at. Yeah, it's a good question.
Oh, I feel like we could team up on some research.
Oh yeah,
Not
absolutely.
my area of study, but my definitely area of interest currently.
Yeah, and I mean it's like uh, you know 52 or 53% of the population it's going to happen to, right? Like a definite. So that's that's a very interesting thing to bring up.
Speaking of research, I feel like I either saw you were on a live or it was an Instagram reel or something recently talking about some research you were collaborating with. Am I
Yeah.
crazy?
No, that's it. We are the subject of a study with University of Maryland and University of Arcadia in Philly. And it's really exciting because the research is completing. All the preliminary results are done, but it's not published yet, obviously. And we're the only CBD company that's ever been tested to show that ours doesn't cause a failed drug test. So it was a safety study to see if, and it was only firefighters taking it. So firefighters using our product at different frequencies and over different amounts of time. They were shown to both have levels of CBD and its metabolites in the urine, but no THC in the urine. And they did I think they did three kinds of tests. They did they did an ELISA test. It's like immunoassay, right? Then they did an EDITH test, which I think is a different kind of immunoassay, and then they did HPLC. So they took it they used an LC triple quad, so like really high powerful stuff, and tried to find THC metabolites, and they had none quantifiable. So, and everybody taking our product. So, interestingly enough, they had someone taking a different kind of CBD that was claimed to be an isolate, and they didn't have it fail, but it was like 1 nanogram or 2 nanograms of THC metabolites in their urine. And so these other brands, like, you can actually, even though it's THC free, you can still see THC metabolites in there. So that was like the proof is in the pudding. But another interesting thing of that study was those little dipstick urinalysis, the immunoassays. They discovered that CBD is actually cross-reactive with those, so you can get a false positive on some of those when you take high amounts of CBD. So right now, it's not listed that that's possible. It lists that there's like common ones that cause a false positive on those little dipsticks, like ibuprofen causes those certain like gastric reflux meds, like omeprazole and stuff. They cause those. So we discovered a new one, which was kind of cool, and also they learned about CBD's metabolites, which they didn't have super good data on. So we helped contribute to that too, which was really, really cool. But yeah, we didn't pay for that study. They wanted to study us. And which means a lot because I don't want like to ever have to pay someone to do our stuff, because then it looks really weird and it's a conflict and all that. So I was really excited about it. I'm hoping that, we can, when it gets published, I really want to bring it to Science to the Station. So I actually submitted to do that. I hope Dr. Janke looks, and same thing. Like, I hope like it looks like I'm grading my own homework. So I don't want to like, oh yeah, look at my brand and be like this whole marketing thing. I really would love people just to see it and not be afraid of CBD anymore. That's the idea.
Well, and here's the thing. We have to be careful who's funding the research
Yeah,
because, but let's say, even if the Dairy Council funded protein research and the research shows that the whey protein is effective, it doesn't mean that the Dairy Council meddled. And in your case,
sure.
you weren't even really the one with the impetus for the research. So I think, great things. Also, I'm going to New York with Brittany Hollerbeck
Oh, awesome.
next weekend.
Very
So I'll
cool.
put the bug in her ear.
I met her in Ohio during the Beaver Creek thing in October. and I only talked to her for like 10 seconds. All I got to say was like, "Hey, saw your stuff. Huge fan. Thank you for doing what you do." And I joined the Science to the Station club, and then that was it. She's like, "Oh, cool, thanks." And I would have talked her ear off, but I was leaving as she was walking in. It was like a pizza joint. That's it. But yeah, she's
is
awesome.
The best. We're
Yeah.
going to New York.
Cool.
We're going to Wicked, and we're going to Hamilton.
Oh, nice. All right, there you go.
I know. What a day. Okay, so all right. I hope I will see you at Science to the Station. Now I got all off track because I was so excited. So drop the mic. Research, amazing.
Research, yeah.
Perfect segue into your, I guess, would you call it purification process? Would that be the right word to use?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good description. So just finding it was crazy, and I couldn't really start Rescue One until we did it, and it was always a challenge to try to understand, what causes a failed drug test. So once there were two guys out of Harvard, and I'm sorry, Johns Hopkins. It was Johns Hopkins, and they showed, hey, if you isolate CBD down to like ultra pure, you won't cause a failed drug test. It was a case study, and it wasn't. I'm sorry, it was part of a published study on other types of CBD, and they just noticed there was like a footnote in this study, and this is me nerding out and just reading all this stuff, and I looked at this and I'm like, wait a second, these guys just said that CBD by itself doesn't cause a failed drug test. So while I was running that other company that had it was full spectrum CBD, it has THC in it, and I couldn't even take the product that I was working on. So funny. I started kind of running around trying to ask labs that do CBD extraction, hey, can you make this at like the detectable level that they get in labs for the HPLC? The lowest they can go down is like 3 zeros, so 0.000, right? So I'm like, can you get this down to 0.000% in the raw ingredient, in the isolate, not after you dilute it? And they're like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, why not? And they go, well, we'd have to like run this machine like 4 times. And I'm like, okay, if I pay you, can you do that? And they're like, we're not going to do that. Nobody wanted to do it. They're like, I don't understand the point. THC free is 0.02% THC. I go, that's not THC free, They go, well, when you dilute it down in the product, it all comes back fine. So that was my search. And I found these guys that wanted to work with me, and they refined it down like that. They use a specific process that I don't tell people, but it's
proprietary.
It is totally proprietary. And, if you see their stuff, it's so cool. I have zero education or even interest in chemistry, and I'm fascinated by this stuff. But that's what they do. They extract down to that level with a process. And it's a really finicky process. So they end up destroying like a lot of products sometimes, because you can ruin it when they do it like this. So it ends up being more expensive, but it's basically a ultra purified version of CBD, to the point where the crystalline itself, but the powder itself is like a crystalline. It looks like that artificial volleyball beach sand. I mean, it's like absolutely pure. There's no taste. There's no scent. There's nothing in it. It's 99.999% CBD.
So the company that you found originally that could purify it down to 0.001%, is that right? 0.001?
0.000.
0.0001. That would still trigger a failed drug test.
No.
Could trigger.
It won't. Not at that purity. So the first company that I was working with, they just had full spectrum. So that meaning it's 0.3 up to 0.3% THC. And yeah, we don't actually know what the level would be, to test positive. What we know is, we don't know what the level of refinement would have to be at in CBD to pass or fail a drug test, right? What we know is if they can detect 15 nanograms of THC in an HPLC machine, or if there's 50 nanograms in the dipstick, you're failing a drug test. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, if I have 0 nanograms of THC, there can't be 15 nanograms of THC metabolite in there. So let's just get down to 0, right? So they test down to the detectable amount in the isolate would be 1 part per million in the isolate, and they have 0. When you dilute it, then it, into your product, it comes out to parts per billion. So our final product tests down to 0 parts per billion of THC after we dilute it down. So but the raw isolate is less than 1 part per million, which is wild.
That's a perfect word. Wild.
Yeah, but it's difficult to do, and honestly, nobody really cares about 0 THC. The rest of the country, they don't really mind failing drug tests because THC isn't really a problem in most other industries, and it's kind of widely accepted. We are unique in that respect, so that's also why it's harder to do and harder to find.
Have you had the opportunity to work with any, say, locals or fire departments to institute contract language? Is that something that you do or have done?
Yeah, we have. There's actually a page on our website about policy help, and my sister Kim, she, I don't know how or why, but I'm very thankful. She loves policy. She's very passionate about it, and somebody's got to be, I guess. So that's what she does, and so we refer people to her with policy questions. Right now, she works at a law firm. She's actually going to law school, which is really cool. But her original degree is in political science, and she had an emphasis on policy. She just loves it, and she's become very educated on cannabis law in the years past, and she has a bunch of successful policies from other departments that she uses as an example for other people. So she helps with that. A lot of time is something very, very simple. And it's basically what we always just try to recommend is don't put anything in there about whether you can or cannot use CBD, because everyone's afraid of people failing drug tests, actually using marijuana and just blaming it on CBD. I think that's what city officials are all worried about. If that's the case, just say, look, do whatever you want, but if you fail a drug test, then you get disciplined. So just don't fail a drug test, and then the onus is on the firefighters to just properly do their due diligence. I mean, if you're buying, hate to say it, and I don't want people getting jammed up, but if you're buying gas station CBD, don't be surprised when you fail a drug test. I can't, I can't help you. So, same thing with athletes, right? Like you have to go buy NSF stuff. It's the same thing. Like you can't, don't go buy the stuff that you get on the Chinese black market and then be shocked when you pop for meth, like that's going to happen. So that's kind of just what we try to tell people is just don't just put in the language. Like, it's got to be focused. The policy has to be focused more on drug testing. If you just don't want people to fail a drug test, just put that in there and leave CBD out of it.
That I just timestamped that. if you're gonna buy your supplements on the Chinese black market, don't be surprised when you test positive for meth. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're gonna buy your CBD at the gas station next to the male performance enhancement pills, you get what you get.
Yeah, that's exactly right. 100%. Well stated.
I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about, because I know you and I podcasted previously, and you had mentioned to me that, I think it was actually off air, you mentioned to me that you have to be very careful how you say things, word things, whatever. And I noticed that recently you were having a bit of trouble with social media in terms of getting like shadow banned and so on and so forth. Can you speak to like, how's that happening? Why is that happening? What's going on? Is that something you can talk about?
Yeah, definitely. It's Instagram's not shy about it. They let me know. They were very forward about it. It wasn't like this secretive thing. So sometimes people think they're shadow banned, and really their content sucks, And I'm like, no, you're not shadow banned. You just, it's just not very good. And so I was like that for a while, where I was like, man, I'm probably just not that good at this. And I didn't think anything of it. And I went into my settings and I noticed Instagram had all these warnings for me. And I have like, I show people how to go look, but basically you just go into your content and you can see in your settings that Instagram has they flag posts and they say, hey, you are not going to be shown to anyone that's not a follower, right? They call it suppression. They said your account is suppressed. But they do this for a range of reasons, and they have categories that they suppress. If you talk about things that violate FDA rules, they'll suppress you. They won't remove you from Instagram, but they're going to suppress you. If you mention pharmaceuticals very often, they could suppress you, right? Especially if you're claiming things. So, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But for me, cannabis in general is suppressed, and they consider cannabis and CBD the same thing. So they said you can stop using the word cannabis and the hashtags and all that stuff, and CBD and hemp and all the other stuff you do, or we have to continue suppressing. And they wanted me to take down all posts regarding that, which would be 99% of what I post, unless I, repost some funny video that fire department coffee put up or something. Like, everything else is going to be suppressed. So that's where we're at. And that's a policy of Meta. But it's also on Google. I'm not allowed to advertise or do anything on Google. And the most recent one was like Linktree. Linktree actually banned us because they said we were selling illegal substances. So I appealed it and I was like, hey, sorry for the confusion, but it's not illegal. And I got a bot response and it was like, thanks for your patronage, your account's shut down. And then I had all these people texting me, like John Hernandez, who runs the San Diego Fire Brigade page, like the really funny page. He's had us, he's been selling our products for years. He'd like text me and he goes, hey, my Linktree is shut down. Like worst responders, same thing. They texted me. They're like, our Linktree got shut down just because we put your brand in ours. And it like rippled out to all these poor people. I was like, it costs them a lot of money. Like the brigade makes a bunch of money off of their Instagram page, and so does worst responders. And I was like, just by being associated with me, they got unplugged. So that's the fight that we fight. It's kind of a weird, and I don't think it's like this conspiracy thing. I don't think they're like trying to keep naturopathic stuff out of the hands. I don't want to believe that. I think what it comes down to more of is there's a lot of people that try to sell marijuana on social media, and they're like, we can't figure you out with our algorithm, and we don't have humans reviewing this, it's bots, so you're done, like you're just not going to get shown around. So until they change that, I'm kind of the only way I'll get the word out is if other people share it, or if it's just word of mouth.
I have two thoughts. First, the thought about if you removed all of your posts that had anything to do with CBD or your product, and you said it would be like 99.9% of your posts, it's basically the purity of your product, right? So that's number one. Number two, we don't care about Linktree, and this is why. I have the best assistant in the world. Lex Lancaster is a freaking superhero, and I do everything Lex tells me to do. And she told me years ago, Linktree is a hot disaster. It breaks all the time. So
cool.
Your links in your bio of Instagram should be linked to your website anyway. So all of those people,
cool.
Lex actually has tutorials on her Instagram of how to make your own links to the website. So maybe I'll put that in the show notes.
Oh yeah, I like that. I'll check that out. That's cool.
Yeah, Linktree breaks all the time. Now I don't even know what I want to talk to you about. All right, let's start winding up. Is there something that we should have hit on that I didn't hit on? We went down a rabbit hole that then I didn't get back out of the rabbit hole and you really wanted to talk about anything, or a final sort of like message for everyone?
I think if I had to just give a final message, it would just be, what we're trying to do is with increasing the longevity of firefighters. I hope it comes across in a way where we're not trying to tell people you can't do the job. I think a lot of times the message gets muddled where people think I'm trying to say I want to be able to sleep perfectly on shift, and I want to never run a call because it's bad for me. I'm like, I still want to run at a busy firehouse. I like running a lot of calls. I like going to fires. I like doing all that stuff. But we need to be way more cognizant of our health and wellness, than we ever have been, because we're up against more carcinogens and more like the job itself being a carcinogen than we ever have been. So I just hope that people kind of take it seriously in a way that if you take care of your health and wellness, you can do all of that cool firefighter shit for way longer, besides like living longer after. But if you're the kind of person who's like, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead, I'm like, yeah, but then you're going to have a 10-year career and you're going to retire on a disability. Where's the heroism in that? Like, why don't you take care of yourself and treat yourself like an athlete, like you are, and keep the machine maintained, for a little bit longer. And that's how I hope people will approach it is. And I know a lot of people listening to this podcast are going to agree with me, but the people who you have to go talk to are not going to agree with you. They're going to think what I'm thinking or what I'm saying right now. So that's the message that we should try to push across is like, hey, I'm telling you to do these things to improve your sleep and to watch what you eat and work out more and all that stuff. Not because I'm saying like you're a wuss and you can't take it. I'm saying, do you like doing all this cool firefighter shit? Yeah. Do you want to do it longer, or do you want to go out because you had a disability, or you became too unhealthy for the job? So I hope it comes across more like that.
My friend Nate Palin says, it's a quote, I use it in all my sleep talks. It says, although you can sleep when you're dead, you can't do much else. So I think that's pretty cool, because every firefighter everywhere says, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah. And
John,
it's true, but yeah, it's scary.
I'm so sorry I interrupted you. You said it's true, but it's scary.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your dogs for a moment. Tell me more.
I have a husky. He's 7 years old, Miko, and he is he's a goofy dude. He is so much fun, and he's like a really, really outgoing, loves people. He wants to be around like 100 people. And then I have a shepherd husky mix, and she is the exact opposite. She's like super anxious. She doesn't want to be around people. She's adorable. She's got one blue eye, one brown eye, so she like has the half husky, half shepherd like right in her eyes, and they're great. I mean, she's 4, and they are like therapy, right? So when I come home and I, immediately they come running up, like you kind of just de-stress right there. Just happy tails. They're awesome. But I love just taking them for car rides and going for walks and stuff and watching them terrorize each other. They're a lot of fun.
I've learned something recently. I haven't admitted this publicly. I always used to say, I love all dogs. I really prefer bigger dogs. So like, miss me with the purse dogs. I still love, but
same.
But volunteering at the animal shelter, I have learned something. I have learned that although I love the huskies and the husky mixes, I could never have one. The reason being and I know it's a matter of training and these are shelter dogs, but I am so tired of getting drug around the neighborhood by the husky mixes. And then they are so mouthy. Yeah. Are your dogs mouthy?
Miko is only like when he sees someone he hasn't seen in a while. So okay. But he does that. Yeah. Quinn does not, but they are sled dogs. They pull hard.
I cannot. I have a shoulder injury right now, or pain at least, from walking husky mixes.
Yeah, they are. A lot of dogs, like they're probably easier to train on the leash because they respond to like, they're pulling back. Like, when you pull on a husky, they're like, this is weight on a sled. I just have to pull harder, So there's a technique that one of my guys showed me, but I like to let him like walk around, I don't want to keep him right by my side, but you basically just, like the dog whisperer guy, where he talks about having the collar really high up. same thing. Like, you just have to have the collar really, really high up so that it's on his jaw, not on their like throat, because that's bad for him. But then, you pull up, not back. And I'm like, all right, but then he's got to be like right here, and he's not being a dog. So I don't know. He's not as bad as he used to be with the pulling, but I used to just, when he really had to run it out, I put a vest on him and I would get on my longboard and I would be like, just run, The problem is it's very dangerous because he'll run, 10, 12 miles an hour. And then I'm one rock away from breaking my elbow. So I've fallen a couple of times, and I was like, nah, we can't do this anymore. It's probably not good.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to break either one of your feet, but especially the fixed foot.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, and I that's the hard part, is my doc was like, oh, it won't break. The fusion will stay there. Everything else around it will break, and he's like, the fusion's not going anywhere, but yeah, the rest of your foot will shatter. I'm like, that sounds way worse.
And it is way worse.
Yeah.
Well, Jon, I'm so happy you took the time today. This episode is coming out super fast. It's going to be out Tuesday.
Oh, wow. That's great. Cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Usually it's not that quick, but I think probably AZ and Jon Vought from Rescue1CBD, oh my lordy. Whatever
I still
I
say CDB sometimes.
CDB.
I say CDB.
We can drop the mic. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. AZ and Jon are out.